The morning sun cast long shadows across New Eden's golden wheat fields when the Imperial ships arrived. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at her office window, watching the massive vessels block out the sky like metal clouds. Her coffee had gone cold in her hands, but she didn't notice. She had been expecting this day for months. The communication device on her desk buzzed with the harsh tone that meant an official Imperial message. Elena set down her cup and activated the hologram projector. The blue light formed the shape of Governor Zethkri, his reptilian features twisted into what humans had learned to recognize as a smile. Ambassador Vasquez, the governor said, his voice carrying the usual Imperial tone of bored superiority, I trust you received our preliminary communications regarding the Youth Integration Program. Elena kept her face calm, though her heart was racing. I did, Governor. As I stated in my response, humanity declines to participate. Zethkri's smile widened, showing rows of sharp teeth. I fear there has been a misunderstanding. This was not a request. The Galactic Empire has selected humanity for the honor of contributing to our educational advancement initiatives. 30% of your young between the ages of 8 and 16 will be transported to Imperial facilities for proper development. And if we refuse? Refusal is not an option that exists within Imperial law. The governor's image flickered as he gestured to something off-screen. Your world has been surrounded. Compliance will ensure the safety of your remaining population. Elena looked out her window again. More ships were descending from the sky, their landing platforms already extending toward the surface. In the distance, she could see people running, parents calling for their children. The peaceful farming community that had taken decades to build was about to be torn apart. You're talking about kidnapping our children, Elena said, turning back to the hologram. We prefer the term cultural exchange, Zethkri replied. Your species shows interesting neural development patterns. These young ones will receive the finest Imperial education and return as productive citizens of the galaxy. Elena had seen the classified reports. She knew what happened to the children who were taken. The Empire had been doing this for centuries, harvesting the young from species across the galaxy. Some were used for labor, others for experimentation. The lucky ones became low-level Imperial citizens, their memories of home carefully erased. But humans were different. The Empire had discovered something unique in human brain patterns during their initial conquest surveys. Human children could adapt and learn in ways that other species couldn't. Their creativity and problem-solving abilities remained strong even under Imperial conditioning. That made them valuable in ways that terrified Elena. How long do we have? She asked. The collection will begin immediately. Please ensure your population cooperates. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. The hologram disappeared, leaving Elena alone in her office. Through the window she could see Imperial soldiers marching through the streets of New Haven, the colony's main town. Their weapons were already drawn. Elena's personal communicator chimed. It was her daughter Maria. Mom, there are soldiers at the school. Maria's voice was scared but trying to be brave. They're telling all the kids to line up by age groups. Stay calm, sweetheart. Do exactly what they say. Don't fight them. But Mom, trust me, Maria. Just do what they say for now. Elena ended the call and immediately activated her emergency communication system. It was a hidden network that connected human colonies across this sector of space. If the Empire was taking children from New Eden, they would be taking them everywhere. The first response came from Captain Torres on the mining station at Proxima 7. Elena, they hit us 3 hours ago. Took 40 kids before we even knew what was happening. More voices joined the channel. Colony after colony reported the same thing. Imperial forces arriving without warning, demanding children, taking them by force when parents refused. The Empire was conducting a massive harvest operation across all of human space. Elena grabbed her emergency bag and headed for the door. She had preparations to make, but first she needed to see Maria one more time. The streets of New Haven were chaos. Parents chased after Imperial transport vehicles, while soldiers kept them back with energy weapons. Children cried as they were separated from their families and loaded onto ships. Elena pushed through the crowd toward the school. She found Maria in the loading area behind the school building. Her daughter stood with 30 other children, all between 8 and 16 years old. An Imperial officer was checking names off a list while soldiers watched the surrounding adults with weapons ready. Maria, Elena called out. Her daughter turned and ran toward her, but a soldier stepped between them. The alien was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. Its weapon was pointed at Elena's chest. "No contact with selected youth," the soldier said in broken standard. "Move away." "That's my daughter," Elena said. "Selected youth belong to Empire now. Move away or face consequences." Elena looked over the soldier's shoulder at Maria. Her daughter was 15, smart and brave like her father had been. Elena wanted to fight, wanted to grab Maria and run, but she knew it would only get them both killed. The Empire had too many soldiers, too many ships. Instead, Elena met her daughter's eyes and nodded slightly. Maria nodded back. They had talked about this possibility. Maria knew what to do. "I love you," Elena called out. "I love you too, Mom," Maria replied. Then she turned and walked back to the group of children. Elena watched as the children were loaded onto a transport. Maria looked back once, her face calm but her eyes determined. Then the transport doors closed and the vehicle lifted into the sky. Elena pulled out her communicator and switched to the emergency broadcast frequency. Every human colony, every ship, every outpost would receive this message. "This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez," she began, her voice carrying across space to millions of human ears. "Today the Galactic Empire took our children. They came to our worlds with their ships and their weapons and their laws, and they stole what matters most to us." She paused, watching as more transports lifted off from around the city. In each one were human children being taken from everything they had ever known. "For 300 years we have been good citizens of the Empire," Elena continued. "We followed their rules. We paid their taxes. We accepted their authority. We tried to be civilized according to their definition of the word." Another transport passed overhead. Elena could see small faces pressed against the windows looking down at the world they were leaving behind. "But they have made a mistake," Elena said, her voice growing harder. "They think because we have been peaceful we are weak. They think because we have been lawful we cannot be dangerous. They are wrong." Elena looked up at the Imperial ship still hovering over the city. Somewhere up there, Maria and thousands of other human children were being taken away from everything they loved. "The Empire wants to see what humans are capable of when we stop following their rules," Elena said. "They want to know what happens when we stop being civilized by their standards." She thought about Maria's brave face, about all the parents around her who were watching their children disappear into the sky. They're about to find out. Elena ended the broadcast and looked around at the crowd of parents and families. Their faces showed grief, anger, and something else, something that the Empire had never seen before in a conquered species. Determination. The harvest was complete. The Empire had what it wanted. But Elena knew this was not an ending, it was a beginning. The message reached Earth 3 days after the harvest began. Admiral Chen Wei sat in the emergency session room deep beneath the Human Defense Council headquarters, watching Elena's broadcast for the 5th time. Around the table, the faces of humanity's leaders showed the same mix of rage and determination that was spreading across human space. 47 colonies hit simultaneously, reported General Morrison, his weathered face grim. Over 12,000 children taken in the first wave. Intelligence suggests they're being transported to Imperial processing facilities in the core worlds. Dr. Sarah Kim leaned forward from her seat at the far end of the table. She had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now her eyes held a dangerous light. "Admiral, I need to brief the Council on Project Prometheus." Chen nodded. Dr. Kim was the head of humanity's most classified research division. Most people in the room had never heard the name Prometheus before. "For 50 years since we first made contact with the Empire, we have been preparing for this day," Dr. Kim began. "We knew that eventually our peaceful coexistence would end. We've seen what happened to other species. We've studied their mistakes." She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. Images of weapons, ships, and technologies that looked both familiar and alien appeared in the blue light. The Empire believes humans are useful only for manual labor and basic services. They think our technology is primitive, our military weak. They have been very careful to keep us from accessing their advanced systems. Dr. Kim smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "They don't know about our talent for reverse engineering." The hologram shifted to show technical schematics. Chen recognized some of the designs as Imperial technology, but modified in ways that made them look more dangerous. "Every piece of Empire tech that has ever been brought to human space has been studied, copied, and improved upon," Dr. Kim continued. "We've taken their energy weapons and made them more efficient. We've analyzed their ship designs and found their weak points. We've even cracked their communication encryption. General Morrison whistled low. How is this possible? Their security protocols are designed to stop species that think like them, Dr. Kim interrupted. The Empire has ruled for thousands of years. Their methods work on civilizations that develop along predictable lines. But human creativity doesn't follow their patterns. We don't think the way they expect us to think. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the hologram. The weapons displayed there could change everything. What kind of capabilities are we talking about? Enhanced plasma weapons with triple the range of Imperial Standard arms. Ships that can mask their energy signatures and appear as space debris. Stealth technology that makes our forces invisible to their sensors. Dr. Kim paused. And genetic enhancements that make human soldiers faster, stronger, and more resilient than any species the Empire has encountered. The room fell silent. Chen knew that genetic modification was forbidden under Imperial law. Any species caught experimenting with their own biology faced complete extermination. How many enhanced soldiers do we have? Chen asked. 12,000 volunteers in the first wave, Dr. Kim replied. All of them parents whose children were taken in the harvest. Chen felt a chill run down his spine. 12,000 human soldiers with nothing left to lose, enhanced beyond normal human capabilities, and armed with weapons the Empire didn't know existed. The communication system activated, and Elena's face appeared on the main screen. She was calling from a transport ship somewhere between New Eden and Earth. Admiral Chen, Elena said, I'm bringing you intelligence on Imperial troop movements and facility locations. We need to talk about response options. Elena, I'm sorry about Maria, Chen said. We're going to get them back. Yes, we are, Elena replied, her voice hard as steel. But not by asking nicely. The Empire just made the biggest mistake in their history. What do you mean? Elena's image flickered as her ship adjusted course. They've been harvesting children from species across the galaxy for centuries, but they've never taken children from a species that fights back the way humans fight back. They don't understand what they've awakened. Dr. Kim stepped forward. Elena, we've been monitoring Imperial communications since the harvest began. They're calling it a routine operation. They have no idea we have the capability to resist. Good, Elena said. How long before our people are ready? Admiral Chen looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leadership. These were people who had spent their careers trying to keep humanity safe through diplomacy and careful cooperation with the Empire. Now they were planning war. Our enhanced forces can be deployed in 72 hours, General Morrison said. But Elena, you need to understand what we're talking about here. Once we start this, there's no going back. The Empire will not accept rebellion. They'll try to exterminate our entire species. Elena's face on the screen showed no fear. General, they took our children. They've already declared war on us. We're just choosing to fight back instead of dying quietly. Dr. Kim activated another set of holograms. These showed star maps with human colonies marked in blue and Imperial facilities marked in red. We have intelligence on 17 major Imperial installations where children from various species are being held. If we hit them simultaneously, we could rescue not just human children but children from dozens of other species, Elena finished. Species that might be willing to join us if we prove the Empire can be beaten. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. It was ambitious, dangerous, and completely insane by normal military standards. It was also exactly the kind of plan that might work. The Empire rules through fear, Elena continued. They maintain control by convincing everyone that resistance is impossible. If we can break that illusion, if we can show the galaxy that the Empire can be defeated, we won't be fighting alone for long. General Morrison pointed to several red dots on the star map. These facilities are heavily defended. We'd be taking casualties. We're already taking casualties, Elena replied. Our children are being broken and reprogrammed in those facilities right now. Every day we wait, we lose more of them. Dr. Kim cleared her throat. There's something else you should know. We've been monitoring communications from the facilities where human children are being held. The conditioning isn't working properly. Chen turned to her. What do you mean? Human children aren't responding to Imperial conditioning techniques the way other species do. Instead of becoming compliant, they're becoming more resistant. Some facilities are reporting organized defiance among the human captives. Elena's face showed the first smile Chen had seen from her since the harvest began. That's my daughter's influence. Maria was part of our colony's emergency preparedness program. She knows how to organize resistance. The point is, Dr. Kim continued, our children are already fighting back from inside the Empire's own facilities. If we can coordinate with them, we turn a rescue mission into a coordinated uprising, General Morrison said, beginning to understand. Admiral Chen made his decision. Dr. Kim, how quickly can we get enhanced weapons and equipment to our forces? 6 hours for the first wave, 24 hours for full deployment. General Morrison, start mobilizing our enhanced soldiers. I want strike teams ready to hit those facilities simultaneously. Elena, Chen said, turning back to the screen, we'll need someone to coordinate diplomatic contact with other species once we start winning. Someone who understands imperial politics. I'll handle that, Elena replied. But Admiral, when this starts, we can't hold back. The Empire needs to see that humanity has stopped playing by their rules completely. Chen nodded. For 3 centuries, humanity had tried to survive by being good citizens of the Galactic Empire. They had followed laws, paid taxes, and accepted their place as a minor species. They had been civilized according to imperial standards, but the Empire had made one crucial mistake. They had never seen what humans were capable of when civilization failed to protect the things that mattered most. Send the activation codes to all our forces, Chen ordered, and send a message to every human colony, every ship, every outpost. What should it say? Dr. Kim asked. Chen looked at Elena's face on the screen, thinking about 12,000 children stolen from their families, thinking about 12,000 enhanced human soldiers ready to fight with nothing left to lose. Tell them it's time to stop being civilized. Captain Marcus Torres crouched in the ventilation shaft above the Imperial Youth Facility on Kepler Station, watching the guards through the metal grating. His enhanced vision could see in the darkness that would blind normal humans. His modified muscles moved without sound. The genetic improvements made him faster and stronger than any Imperial soldier. But more importantly, they made him think differently. Phoenix Team, report status, he whispered into his throat microphone. Team 2 in position at the power grid, came the reply from Sergeant Kim. Team 3 has eyes on the transport bay. Team 4 is ready at the communication center. Marcus checked his weapon one more time. It looked like a standard Imperial plasma rifle, but Dr. Kim's modifications had tripled its power and range. The Empire's own technology turned against them. Remember, we're not just here to rescue our kids, Marcus said. Every species in that facility needs to see that the Empire can be beaten. We go in hard, we go in fast, and we make sure everyone knows that humans don't abandon their young. Through the grating, Marcus could see the main holding area. Children from dozens of different species sat in organized groups, wearing identical gray uniforms. The Imperial conditioning process was designed to break their connection to their home cultures and make them loyal to the Empire. But in one corner, Marcus spotted a group that wasn't sitting quietly like the others. Human children led by a teenage girl with dark hair were whispering urgently to children from other species. As Marcus watched, the girl passed something small to a blue-skinned alien child, who nodded and slipped it into his uniform. Marcus smiled grimly. That had to be Maria Vasquez, Elena's daughter. Intelligence reports said she had been organizing resistance in multiple facilities. The Empire had no idea what they were dealing with. All teams, this is Phoenix Leader, Marcus said. Target acquired. Beginning operation in 30 seconds. The attack came from 4 directions at once. Team 2 cut the power, plunging the facility into emergency lighting. Team 3 seized the transport bay to prevent reinforcements from arriving. Team 4 jammed all communications to stop the facility from calling for help. Marcus dropped through the grating into the main holding area, his boots hitting the floor with barely a whisper. Imperial guards spun toward him, but their weapons were designed for crowd control, not combat. Marcus's enhanced rifle cut through their energy shields like they were made of paper. Everyone stay down, he shouted in Standard. Then switching to English, human children sound off. Here. Maria Vasquez stood up from behind an overturned table, pulling 2 smaller children with her. We've got 37 humans total, plus 56 from other species who want to come with us. Marcus felt a surge of pride. Not only had the human children survived Imperial conditioning, they had convinced children from other species to join their resistance. Can you get them organized for transport? Marcus asked Maria while his team secured the area. Already done, Maria replied. She whistled sharply and the children began moving in coordinated groups toward the exits. We've been planning this for weeks. We knew someone would come for us. An Imperial officer burst through the main entrance, followed by a squad of soldiers. Marcus put 3 plasma bolts into the officer's chest before the alien could raise his weapon. The soldiers behind him hesitated, confused by the human's speed and accuracy. Team 2. I need those lights back on, Marcus called. Working on it, Captain. These Imperial systems are more complex than we thought. Negative, leave them dark. We work better in the shadows anyway. Marcus led the group of children toward the transport bay. As they moved through the corridors, more Imperial soldiers appeared, but they were unprepared for human tactics. Marcus's team used the children's knowledge of the facility layout to outflank and surprise every defensive position. In the transport bay, Sergeant Kim had secured 3 Imperial shuttles. Captain, we've got enough room for everyone, but we need to move fast. My intercepted communications show Imperial reinforcements are 20 minutes out. Load them up, Marcus ordered. He turned to Maria. What about the other facilities? Do you have contact with human children in other locations? Maria pulled out a small device that looked like a standard Imperial communicator, but Marcus could see modifications that definitely weren't Imperial technology. We've been in touch with resistance groups at 15 other facilities. They're all ready to move when you give the signal. Marcus stared at the device. How did you build that? My mom taught me to be prepared, Maria said with a grin that reminded Marcus of Elena. And it turns out human kids are really good at taking apart Imperial tech and putting it back together in ways they never expected. The shuttle engines hummed to life. Through the bay windows, Marcus could see Imperial ships approaching in the distance. Time to go, all teams extract now, he ordered. Phoenix leader to all strike forces. Begin Phase 2 operations immediately. As their shuttle lifted off from Kepler Station, Marcus received reports from human strike teams across the galaxy. 17 Imperial facilities hit simultaneously. Thousands of children rescued, not just human, but from dozens of other species. Phoenix leader, this is Eagle Team, came a voice over the communications. We've rescued 800 children from the Rigel facility, including 300 humans. But Captain, you need to hear this. The children from other species are asking to join our resistance. Marcus looked at Maria, who was helping younger children strap into their seats. What did you tell them about us? The truth, Maria replied. That humans don't abandon anyone who fights beside us. That we keep our promises. That we remember our friends and we never forgive our enemies. The shuttle's navigation system showed their course to the rendezvous point where Elena was coordinating the larger resistance effort. As they flew through space, Marcus's communicator crackled with more reports. Dragon Team reporting successful extraction from Vega Prime. 400 rescued, including the local governor's son. Hawk Team completed operation at Centauri Station. 600 rescued, 0 casualties. Wolf Team encountered heavy resistance at Proxima facility, but mission successful. 900 rescued, facility destroyed. Maria listened to the reports with satisfaction. They're starting to understand, aren't they? The Empire, I mean. They're realizing they made a mistake, Marcus nodded. The Empire had ruled for thousands of years by convincing everyone that resistance was impossible. But now children from across the galaxy were being rescued by human soldiers who appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Phoenix leader, this is Admiral Chen, came a new voice over the communications. How are our kids doing? Marcus looked around the shuttle at the children they had rescued. Human kids sat next to aliens from species he didn't even recognize, all of them talking quietly and sharing food from their emergency rations. The fear was gone from their faces, replaced by something the Empire had tried to crush. Hope. Admiral, the kids are fine, Marcus replied. Better than fine. They're organized, they're brave, and they've made friends with children from other species. The Empire tried to break them, but instead they built something new. And the other species? Are they willing to work with us? Marcus looked at Maria, who was teaching a young alien child how to use a human emergency beacon. The child's species had been conquered by the Empire 2 centuries ago. Its people had been told that resistance was impossible, that cooperation was the only way to survive. But now this child had seen humans fight back successfully. It had seen that the Empire could be beaten, that their children could be rescued, that there was an alternative to endless submission. Admiral, Marcus said, I think we're about to discover we're not fighting this war alone. Through the shuttle window, Marcus could see other ships joining their convoy. Some were human vessels, but others belonged to species he didn't recognize. Word was spreading across the galaxy. The humans had struck back against the Empire and won. The children on the shuttle were already making plans for what came next, talking about ways to help their homeworlds resist Imperial control. They had been taken from their families to be broken and converted into Imperial citizens. Instead, they had become the foundation of a rebellion that would shake the Empire to its core. Marcus smiled as he listened to their excited conversations. The Empire had wanted to see what human children could become under their guidance. They were about to find out they had raised an army against themselves. The Imperial fleet arrived at the Kepler Junction like a metal storm. 15 Titan-class battleships, each one larger than a human city, dropped out of hyperspace with weapons already charging. Admiral Chen watched them appear on his tactical display and felt the weight of humanity's survival pressing down on his shoulders. "Enemy fleet identified," reported Commander Walsh from the sensor station. 15 heavy battleships, 40 cruisers, over 200 support vessels. This is the largest Imperial fleet we've ever seen. Elena stood beside Chen on the bridge of the human flagship Defiance. Her diplomatic uniform had been replaced with military gear, and her face showed the same determination that had carried her through months of planning for this moment. "They're scared," Elena said, studying the Imperial formation. "This isn't just a punitive expedition. They're bringing everything they have because they know we're a real threat now." Chen nodded. The human rescue operations had been more successful than anyone had dared hope. 17 Imperial facilities destroyed, thousands of children rescued, and most importantly, dozens of alien species had seen proof that the Empire could be beaten. Rebellions were breaking out across the galaxy. "Admiral," came Maria's voice over the communications from her position on the youth command ship. "Our alien allies are in position. We've got ships from 23 different species ready to fight alongside us." Chen looked at the tactical display. What had started as a desperate rescue mission had become something much larger. The human fleet was no longer alone. Ships from species that had been conquered centuries ago flew beside them, their crews ready to fight for freedom they had never thought possible. "Governor Zethkri is requesting communication," reported the communications officer. "Put him on screen," Elena said before Chen could respond. The reptilian governor appeared on the main display, his earlier smugness replaced by cold anger. Behind him, Chen could see the bridge of an Imperial flagship, with officers from species that had served the Empire for millennia. "Ambassador Vasquez," Zethkri said, pronouncing her title like an insult. "You have violated Imperial law, destroyed Imperial property, and incited rebellion across 17 sectors. Surrender your fleet immediately and I will ensure your species dies quickly." Elena stepped forward. "Governor, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't violate your laws. We stopped recognizing them. You cannot win this battle," Zethkri continued. "Our fleet outnumbers yours 3-1. Our weapons are superior. Our ships are stronger. Your rebellion ends here." "You're probably right about the numbers," Elena admitted, "but you've made one crucial mistake." "Which is?" Elena smiled, and it was the expression of a human who had nothing left to lose. "You still think this is about military superiority. You still think wars are won by the side with the biggest ships and the most weapons." Zethkri's eyes narrowed. "What else could it be about?" "Governor, let me ask you something. In all your centuries of conquest, how many species have you faced that wanted to win more than they wanted to survive?" Before Zethkri could answer, Chen gave the order. "All ships execute Battle Plan Omega. Show them what humans fight like when someone threatens our children." The human fleet moved like no Imperial commander had ever seen. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, the ships scattered in seemingly random directions, using their enhanced stealth technology to disappear from Imperial sensors. "What are they doing?" Zethkri demanded. "This is not standard fleet tactics." "No," Elena replied, still on the communication channel. "It's not. We don't fight the way you expect civilized species to fight." The first human attack came from 6 directions at once. Small human ships, invisible to Imperial sensors until the last moment, rammed into the largest Imperial battleships at maximum speed. The ships were unmanned, piloted by artificial intelligence, but the impact of metal and explosives against Imperial shields created massive energy discharges. "Sir, we're reading massive casualties on the lead Imperial vessels," Commander Walsh reported. "Those ramming attacks disrupted their shield generators." "Phase 2, Chen ordered. Now the real human fleet attacked. Ships appeared from behind asteroids, from inside nebula clouds, from positions the Imperial fleet had never thought to guard. Human weapons, enhanced with stolen Imperial technology, tore through damaged Imperial shields with deadly efficiency. But the Empire had survived for millennia by adapting to threats. The Imperial fleet regrouped, using their superior numbers to surround isolated human ships. Massive Imperial weapons began tearing through human vessels. "We're taking heavy casualties," reported Commander Walsh. 12 ships destroyed, 8 more heavily damaged. Chen felt each loss like a physical blow. These weren't just ships. They were crews filled with people who had volunteered to fight for their children's freedom. But he also knew this was exactly what they had planned for. "Elena." "It's time," Chen said. Elena activated her communication system, broadcasting on frequencies that would reach every rebel ship in the battle. "All Allied forces, this is Elena Vasquez. Execute Liberation Protocol now." Across the battle, ships from 24 different species suddenly changed their tactics. They had been fighting like Imperial forces, using standard formations and predictable strategies. Now they began fighting like humans. Ships that had been retreating suddenly turned and rammed Imperial vessels. Crews that had been following orders began improvising, using their knowledge of Imperial technology to exploit weaknesses their former masters had never imagined. Most importantly, they began fighting with the desperation of people who knew this was their only chance at freedom. "Sir, the Imperial fleet is in chaos," Commander Walsh reported. "Their alien crews are no longer following standard protocols. Some ships are firing on their own command vessels." On the screen, Governor Zethkri's composed expression had turned to confusion and rage. "What have you done?" "How are you controlling our subject species?" "We're not controlling them," Elena replied. "We're showing them what's possible when you stop being afraid." Maria's voice came over the communication channel. "Mom, our youth brigades are in position, ready to execute the final phase." Chen looked at Elena. The final phase was the most dangerous part of their plan. It would either end the Imperial threat or get them all killed. "Do it," Elena said. Across the battle, small ships carrying the rescued children moved toward the largest Imperial vessels, not to attack but to broadcast. Every child, human and alien alike, began transmitting the same message to Imperial ships. "This is Maria Vasquez." Maria's voice echoed across Imperial communication channels. "We are the children you tried to break. We are the future you tried to steal. We are telling our people across the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten." The effect was immediate. Imperial ships began receiving communications from their home worlds. Rebellions that had been planned in secret for months suddenly erupted simultaneously across dozens of systems. "Sir," an Imperial officer reported to Governor Zethkri, "we're receiving reports of uprisings on Vega, Rigel Centauri, and 15 other core systems. Our garrison forces are requesting immediate reinforcements." Zethkri stared at the tactical display as red warnings began appearing across Imperial space. "This is impossible. The subject species lack the organization for coordinated rebellion." "They do now," Elena said. "Governor, you taught us that civilization was weakness. That cooperation was submission. That the only way to survive was to accept your dominance." Imperial ships began withdrawing from the battle, recalled to defend their home systems. The mighty fleet that had come to crush humanity was dissolving as reports of new rebellions reached them every minute. "Thank you for the lesson," Elena continued. "We've taught it to everyone you conquered. The Empire is finished, Governor. Your own subjects are taking it apart from the inside." Zethkri's image flickered as his ship prepared to retreat. "This is not over, human. The Empire will survive. We will rebuild." "Maybe," Elena admitted, "but it won't be the same Empire, and it won't include us." The Imperial fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the humans and their allies in control of the Kepler Junction. But Chen knew this victory was about more than one battle. They had proven that the Empire could be beaten, that their subjects could fight back, that freedom was possible. "Admiral," Commander Walsh reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from Imperial garrisons across 17 systems. Local populations are demanding independence." Elena looked out at the stars where Imperial ships had been just minutes before. Somewhere out there, Maria and the other children were broadcasting messages of hope to worlds that had been conquered centuries ago. "Chen," Elena said, "I think we just started something that's going to change the galaxy forever." Chen nodded. The Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for thousands of years. But they had never faced an enemy that fought the way humans fought when their children were threatened. They had never faced an enemy that turned their own strength against them. The reckoning had begun. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Junction, Elena Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council in what had once been the Imperial Senate Chamber. The massive hall that had witnessed centuries of Imperial dominance now hosted representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had never been allowed to speak in this room before. The irony was not lost on her. She wore a simple black suit instead of the elaborate robes that Imperial officials had favored. Her only decoration was a small pin showing the Earth and its moon, a reminder of humanity's humble origins in a galaxy that had learned to fear and respect them. Honored representatives, Elena began, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. We gather today not as subjects of an empire, but as free citizens of a galaxy that has chosen cooperation over domination. In the front row, Maria sat with the other members of the Youth Brigade. At 16, she had already seen more conflict than most soldiers experienced in a lifetime. But today her face showed hope instead of the grim determination that had carried her through months of war. The Galactic Empire ruled for 3,000 years, Elena continued. They maintained order through fear, compliance through overwhelming force, and peace through the suppression of anyone who dared to resist. Today we choose a different path. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Representatives from species that had been conquered centuries ago nodded their approval. Some of them still looked nervous, as if they expected Imperial forces to burst through the doors at any moment. But we cannot pretend that this transition will be easy, Elena said. The Empire's collapse has left power vacuums across the galaxy. Some systems are struggling with freedom they haven't experienced in generations. Others are trying to establish their own empires to fill the void. Admiral Chen, now serving as the head of the Galactic Defense Force, stepped forward to address security concerns. We've identified 47 systems where local warlords are attempting to seize control. The Defense Force is prepared to intervene, but only at the request of legitimate planetary governments. Elena watched the faces in the chamber. Many of these representatives came from species that had served the Empire for so long that they had forgotten how to govern themselves. The transition to freedom was proving as challenging as the war for independence had been. Which brings us to the question of leadership, Elena said. The Empire was ruled by fear and force. We propose something different. A council where every species has a voice, where decisions are made by consensus rather than decree, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. The representative from Rigel, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms, stood to speak. Ambassador Vasquez, your species has proven its military capabilities. Why should we trust that humans will not simply become the new empire? It was a fair question, and one that Elena had been expecting. Because we've seen what happens when power is concentrated in the hands of a few. Because our children were victims of that system, and we've sworn never to let it happen again. She gestured to Maria and the other young people in the front row. But more importantly, because we're not making these decisions alone. The Youth Brigade represents the next generation of galactic citizens. They've experienced both Imperial oppression and the struggle for freedom. They'll be our conscience, ensuring we never forget why we fought this war. Maria stood and walked to the podium. At Elena's nod, she took her place at the center of the chamber. 6 months ago, I was taken from my home and family, Maria began. The Empire thought they could break me, reprogram me, turn me into a loyal citizen who would never question their authority. Instead, they taught me that freedom is worth any sacrifice. She looked around the chamber at representatives from dozens of species. We, the children who were taken, made a promise to each other in those Imperial facilities. We promised that we would never let what happened to us happen to anyone else's children. Today, we're asking you to make the same promise. The chamber fell silent. Elena felt a surge of pride as she watched her daughter address the galaxy's leaders, with the same courage she had shown during their captivity. New Galactic Council will have many responsibilities, Maria continued. Trade regulations, defense coordination, scientific cooperation. But our first and most important duty will be the protection of children across the galaxy. No species will be allowed to harvest, enslave, or exploit the young of any other species. Applause began in the section where human representatives sat and spread across the chamber. Elena noted that the loudest cheers came from species whose own children had been victims of Imperial policies. We propose the establishment of the Galactic Child Protection Force, Maria said, a joint military unit with representatives from every member species, dedicated to ensuring that no child anywhere in the galaxy suffers what we suffered. Elena stepped back to the podium as Maria returned to her seat. The representative from Earth has outlined our first proposal. Are there any objections? The vote was unanimous. Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders as she realized that the galaxy's new government had just made its first official act, the protection of children. Over the following hours, the Council addressed dozens of other issues. Trade routes that had been controlled by imperial monopolies were opened to free commerce. Scientific knowledge that the Empire had hoarded was shared freely among all species. Territorial disputes that had been frozen for centuries under imperial law were submitted to arbitration. But the most important moment came when the representative from Proxima, a species that had been among the Empire's most loyal subjects, stood to speak. The Proximan people served the Empire faithfully for 800 years, the alien said. We believed that cooperation with imperial authority was the only way to ensure our survival. We were wrong. Elena watched as the representative struggled with emotions that his species had been taught to suppress for centuries. When human forces rescued our children from imperial facilities, they could have demanded our allegiance in return. Instead, they simply asked us to remember what freedom felt like. Today, the Proximan people vote to join this new council not out of fear or obligation, but because we choose to. More applause filled the chamber. Elena realized that this moment represented something the galaxy had never seen before, a government based on voluntary participation rather than conquest and submission. As the day wore on, Elena found herself thinking about the journey that had brought them to this point. It had started with a simple refusal to surrender human children to imperial authority. It had grown into a war that consumed the galaxy. Now it had become something entirely new, a chance for every species to determine its own destiny. The final vote before us today, Elena announced as the session neared its end, is the election of the Council's first Supreme Chancellor. Elena had expected this moment but still felt nervous as nominations were made. Representatives from a dozen species put forward candidates, but when the vote was tallied, the result was overwhelming. By a vote of 187 to 23, Elena Vasquez of Earth is elected as the first Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Council, Admiral Chen announced. Elena accepted the position with mixed feelings. She had spent her career trying to keep humanity safe through diplomacy and compromise. Now she was being asked to lead a government that included species she had barely heard of 6 months ago. I accept this responsibility with humility, Elena said, but I want to make one thing clear to everyone in this chamber and everyone listening across the galaxy. This council exists to serve its citizens, not to rule them. The moment we forget that, the moment we start thinking like the empire we replaced, is the moment we betray everything we fought for. She looked at Maria, who nodded approvingly from the front row. The empire ruled through fear, Elena continued. They convinced their subjects that civilization meant submission, that order required the surrender of freedom. We're going to prove them wrong. As the session ended and representatives began filing out of the chamber, Elena remained at the podium, looking out at the empty seats. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new crises, new tests of the fragile democracy they had built. But today, for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy was free. Maria approached the podium as the chamber emptied. Mom, do you think it will work? This new government, I mean. Elena put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. I don't know, sweetheart. Democracy is messy, complicated, and sometimes frustrating. But it's also the only system that treats people like they deserve a voice in their own destiny. They walked together toward the chamber's exit, past the empty throne where imperial governors had once sat in judgment over conquered species. The Empire thought they could take our children and break them, Elena said. Instead, you and the others showed the galaxy what freedom looks like. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. Outside the chamber, the first democratic government in galactic history was already hard at work. Representatives were forming committees, negotiating treaties, and planning the massive task of rebuilding a galaxy that had been shaped by millennia of authoritarian rule. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, conflicts, and moments when the whole experiment seemed doomed to failure.